how to sell your coaching services. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. That's what I had scheduled to talk about. That's what my points were for the past couple weeks. I track what it is that I want to talk about and come on here and record. However, that is not what I'm going to end up talking about to you guys today. And the reason being is for the past couple weeks, all I've been hearing in my spirit is rest. You need to rest, right? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I hear you, God. I need to rest. So I'm going to take certain things off my plate. I'm going to try to sleep more, go to bed early, all of that jazz. And I've come to realize that's not what he was asking me to do. He was asking me to rest in him, asking me to rest in his presence. So I was like, okay, what does that mean to rest in God's presence? And that's kind of like what I want to talk to you guys about today is learning how to rest in God's presence. Now, this is completely different than, the sales conversations that we usually have. But the fact that this subject has been tugging in my spirit for so long, I feel like this is probably something I should share and talk about. And maybe it's not for any of you guys, maybe it's just for one of you, and heck, maybe it's for me. But the fact that this was weighing so heavily on me, I just wanted to come in here and talk about that. So that's what we're going to end up talking about today is just what does it look like to truly rest? And to be honest with you, I feel like sometimes the best way to get the results that we want, whether it's in our work, our entrepreneurship, our W-2 jobs, with our relationship with our kids, the results that we want with ourselves, we have to rest, right? And so, why is that important? One, God is the number one example of how we should live our lives, right? The whole point of the Bible is a guide for us to not only get to know him, but how to live this life on this earth. And the first thing, even in Genesis, it starts off with God showing us what's important. After he created the whole universe, right? He rested. God rested. God rested from his work. And he advises us to take a Sabbath day. Now, I'm not going to get into argument of Sabbath being a Saturday or Sunday, whatever. The Sabbath day is just a day for you to rest. But I think a lot of times we get it wrong on what resting is because I know I was getting it wrong. And to me, resting was just, I need to stop working and just go to sleep. Yes, that, right? That plays a part into it too. But what I kept finding myself is I couldn't really rest and sleep because I was worried. I was still thinking about, oh, all of these things that I have to do, all of these things that I need to do. And it's like tomorrow's not promised. What makes you think that you're gonna get to do this tomorrow? How many times do you make a plan and do all those things and things come up and that whole thing doesn't, you were worried about doesn't even become a priority because things come up, you know? So how to rest in God. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to talk about three practical things that we can do, that I've been trying to do, right, to truly rest, and like find my husa, if you will, right? So, the one of the Psalms I want to start with, well, two, but we're going to talk about a couple of Psalms. Let's see. Sorry, my Bible's on my lap, but you know how I always end pretty much most of my podcasts with this verse, which is Psalm 32, verse 8. It says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. That is my anchor verse for the podcast. That's my anchor verse for my consulting business. That's my anchor verse for being a wife. That's my anchor verse for being a mother. That is literally my anchor verse. Is Psalm 38 verse 8. And with that, it helps me to know that anything that I need, I have someone who literally has all the answers, right? So whether it's for my business, whether it's for like how do I communicate with this client, what should I say to this prospect, how do I respond to this customer service question, how do I deal with you know contracts, all of those things, hiring, all of those things, I go to him first. And one thing that I realize is God does speak to us. And I know you're probably like, well, duh. Well, I'm a toddler Christian. Okay, let's just start there. And coming to that realization that God tucks to responds and actually talks to you is the most beautiful and most humbling thing ever to me, discovering that. And to know that anything that I need, any question that I have, any concern that I have, I can just go to him. That is that is just, I don't have words. Anyways, that's amazing to me, right? So the first thing that we need to do in resting in God is to pray, is to ask him to guide us, is to go and talk to him. That's the first thing in finding rest, right? He said bring all of our worries to him, to lay it at the cross. So when we are worried and our minds are going 10,000 miles an hour and we're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in the third quarter and I haven't reached my goals. What do I need to do? And we want to practice all the things we talked about last week, right? And being, scheduling our time, all of those things. That's all great and dandy. But I promise you, if you go to God first and ask Him to teach you, ask Him to counsel you, He will give you the strategy that works best for you because He knows you better than anyone else. He knows you better than you know yourself. He knows your business, He knows the outcome. The thing that I realized for me was that I'm thinking about 2025. God is already in 2050, right? So He already knows everything that's going to unfold. Like He has the game plan, right? So here I am trying to plan for next year, and I don't even know what's going to happen in the next 20 minutes. But He does. He literally has all of the plans. He sees everything that's going to happen. And the thing that helps me too is that knowing that His word will not come back void. So if He says it will happen, it will happen. There's nothing you can do to mess it up. So that to me was something that allowed me to really like, okay, I can just rest in knowing that He has my back. I can just rest in knowing that my future is secure in Him and I don't have to try to figure it out myself because He already has that. And as someone who gets anxious, that should really help you to know you can relax, right? You can relax and knowing that everything's going to work out anyways. And I know people say that in a way of like, oh, don't worry, things will work out. Everything is supposed to happen the way it's supposed to happen. Um, my thing for you is that everything is going to happen according to God's purpose for your life. And therefore, you don't have to worry. Therefore, you could just pray and say, hey, God, this is what my concerns are. What strategy do you have for me? What plan do you have for me? And honestly, that I feel like that is the secret weapon. That is the secret sauce to you being successful in your business is just going to God and say, hey, God, what is the strategy that you want me to do for my business? Not what I see this person doing, not what that person doing. God will give you the specific strategy for your business. And you just have to be willing and listen because like I said, today that's not what my goal was to talk about. But I felt like, okay, I've been having this, so I'm just going to go with it. Will this be the outcome that I think it will be? Probably not. But I'm hoping it may speak to you and may speak to your spirit to like learn, how to rest in him. So that's the first thing, is to pray, is to go to our Father and say, hey, Dad, I need help. I need help. Right? The second thing is to focus. I think especially as if you are a mother and wife and entrepreneur, there is a lot to do. There's a lot to do, and it seems like the work never stops, right? You being pulled in multiple different directions, and I get it. And sometimes it's hard to focus on one task, which then increases your anxiety, increases your stress hormones, all of those things. So the best thing to do is just to focus. Take one task, do one thing at a time. Don't try to be, the superhero that we see, especially as moms. And I speak for myself and some of my friends group, our mom support group. You need one if you don't have one, right? About all of the things that we wish we could do, all of the guilt trip that we put on ourselves, all of the responsibility that we feel like we must do. I challenge you and I encourage you to just focus on one thing. Just focus on one thing. If I, at this moment, all I can do is just breathe, just do that. Just breathe. Okay? It's okay. Right? The dishes can wait. That phone call that you schedule, if it's to where you may have to reschedule it, do that. I know a lot of time we're like, that's not professional. That's not, we're not setting the right example. But I will tell you that you could force this call, and I'm talking about this because I just had this happen. You could force this call and lose the client anyways. Or you could reschedule at a time where you are in your best mind frame to be available for your client, right? Especially as a coach, especially as a consultant. And especially if you like a business coach or a life coach, right? Like, how are you going to give advice that you're not taking your own advice? If that makes sense, right? So you need to be present, not present, right? You need to focus on the task at hand. So sometimes that means moving things around, and that's okay, right? So focus on one thing will help you to rest, will help declutter your mind. And the other thing with focus, we kind of talked about it a little bit last week, right? When we were talking about what you need to do and things like that, is to remove things off your plate. Can you delegate? Can you give someone else a task to do? Right? Can is this really necessary? Again, ask God to give you the strategy. Is this something that you really have to do? Um, Something just came to me. Psalm 62, 1 second. See if we can find it. Psalm 62 1 is what I'm looking for. I should probably look on my phone. That might be faster. Psalm 62, verse 1. All right, it just says, truly my soul find rest in God. My salvation comes from him. Again, just asking him to guide you on what it is that you even need to focus on, right? We talk about, and I could be having this wrong, so I apologize. Like I said, I'm a toddler Christian, right? But like, our souls are our emotions, right? And if we're just talking like on a scientific and quotation, how our emotions are for women, right? Our emotions are tied to the chemicals that flows in our brain and all of those things, our hormones and all of that things, which means it is wavy, right? We can The reason why the Bible says we cannot trust in our hearts, right? Like your heart is treacherous, is because it goes through a lot. Our emotions are unstable, Not unstable as in like we're crazy, but like today we're happy, tomorrow we're sad, circumstances happen, all of those things, right? So what happens when we trust our soul, like we trust our soul to find rest in God? We are trusting our feelings and our emotions aside and saying, God, I'm trusting you. I'm asking you to take control over me. I know that in you I can find rest. So, and going to him and saying, God, what should I focus on? What should I focus on? What is the area of opportunity that's going to give me the that 80% return, right? If I put this amount, 20% into this area, I will get 80% return. He will show you that. He will tell you, hey, all of these tasks that you're doing, I need you to focus on this. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. I Sometimes it makes no sense in my brain when I feel the push for the Holy Spirit to tell me to go that way. And I'm like, that don't make sense. And then you go that way and you're like, oh, you playing chess, God. Okay, I see you. I see you. Right. And it's like, just trust him. He knows what's going on. So again, second thing is to focus on one task and ask him which task it is that you need to focus on, which area that you need to invest your time in, that you're going to get the most return from it, and he will show you that exact strategy. And then lastly, the last thing is to stop comparing. And I think this is probably one of the reasons why we're not resting. One of the reasons why we're not finding that peace that surpasses all understanding that we can only find from God, because we are in a comparison mode. We want to, okay, this entrepreneur is in the same field as I am, and she's crushing it, and she's doing this, and she's doing that, and therefore I need to maybe try this and maybe try that, and all of those things. Like she just closed this amount of clients, I can't even get my first client. All of those things weigh on us, and then we start worrying. Then we try to do extra stuff that is not part of the strategy that works, that will work for you. I get it. Everyone says, oh, you need to be on all the social medias and this and that. Is that what God says? Is that what God says? Because you doing all this stuff on Instagram may not be where God wants you to be. He may be like, hey, you need to go, I don't know, on TikTok. Or he may say no social media at all. And again, you may be like, that doesn't make any sense because, hey, God, like everybody's on social media. This is where, things happen and people know me. And he may be like, no, I'm going to open doors for you that only I can open. And I'm going to do things a way that you will know that it's me that's doing it. Have you asked God for that? This is why I say you can't compare what other people are doing and then try to do it yourself. Yes, there are certain things that you need to look into your market, and just see where the market is going, what makes sense and things like that. But always go back to the one who has all the answers. Always go back to the one who have the strategy for you. And so resting in God just means to trust in him, to trust in his way, to trust in the fact that he knows what's best for you. He knows what's best for me. What's best for you may not be for me. And here's the thing. If you have more than one kid or have dealt with more than one kid, even if they're siblings, you will quickly find out that this child responds to things this way, this one responds to things in that way. And they can be twins, right? And so if we as human can realize that, God, of course, as our Father knows that, hey, the pressure I can put, not pressure, but the challenges that Annie can face, Ashley can't, right? The pressure that Ashley can't face, Annie can't face, because we're not at the same threshold, right? I have not worked this muscle, right, yet. So I can't take 150 pounds like Ashley can in this area. And Ashley can't take 150 pounds in this area like Annie can. God knows you. So therefore, when he's like, hey, you're not ready for this, and you're like, hey, this is what everybody else is doing in my business, I'm ready, I need to do this, I need to do that, and it's not the time. It's not the time. And it may not be the strategy for you, period. But it could also be that it's just not the time right now for you. So in learning how to rest and learning how to just trust in God and just rest in him, asking for his peace. Because I know that's what I've been asking all this week, because things just been going array in my personal life, right? And I'm just praying for healing, praying for answers, praying for these things, trying to work and trying to juggle everything. I literally feel like I was about to go crazy. Like like calling people and be like, hey, I think I'm getting some demonic forces against me right now. I need prayer. Right? That's how like this week was. But for weeks I've been saying, like, God's been telling me rest, rest, rest. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do less and less. And it's like, that's not how you rest in God. Sleeping more is great, but you don't get quality sleep because you still, and your mind is still worried, right? I still didn't lay it on God's feet. And I'm still learning how to do that. I'm still learning how to stop taking control and just be like, okay, God, I know I said I'm going to lay this at your feet, but I think I can help you in this area. Let me pick this back up. I do that all the time, right? And I need to learn how to just trust him and just be like, okay, you say you got this. Every time I'm gonna go back to the foot of the cross, and I can imagine myself just be like, let me see if I like, no, just stop, right? So, I had another verse I wanted to share. I think it's 1 second verse. I wrote it down. Psalm 37. Put 37 verse 7. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. And I think another version says rest in the Lord, but still, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. That part, right? That part. Wait patiently for him. And that's another thing. It's like, we're like, okay, I'm waiting on the Lord. I'm going to give you 1 week, God, for you to figure this out. Like, okay. Like, we're putting God on the timeline, right? So I tell my son this all the time. I'm like, patience means waiting with a good attitude, right? That, but also patient means waiting. That part that we hate to do, at least speaking for myself, whew, right? Wait, we hate to wait. We want to get things instantly, like right now, or like in a time frame that we're like, hey, this should be happening in this instant. And realizing that, listen, there are so many things that I wanted that I didn't get until like years later. And I am so grateful, and so thankful that God did not give me those blessings at the time that I wanted them so badly, because I would have fumbled the ball so bad, right? And so, in knowing that and looking at the past and looking at how God provided at the right moment, He's never late. He's always on time. Always. Not sometimes, always on time. So with that, we can know, we can rest in the fact that, hey, I'm going to wait patiently on you. I don't need to compare myself to other people. I don't need to compare the fact that, hey, this person has X amount of, I don't know, followers or subscribers or whatever. And I need to get to that level too. I need to blah, blah, blah. Like, hey, God knows what He's doing. At the right time, you will get the answer that you're looking for. At the right time, the doors will open without you even touching it. It's going to be automatic doors. It's just going to slide open for you, right? And so that's all I wanted to go over with you guys today. This is completely different than some of the things I talk about all the time, but I really felt like we needed to address this because this is something that just kept repeating, repeating. And today, my goal was to talk about how to sell your services, this is and that, but I felt like that's not what we're going to talk about today. That's not what we needed to talk about today. We need to talk about learning how to rest in God, learning how to wait patiently on Him, learning how to trust Him, and learning how to go to Him for our strategy. He has the secret sauce. He has the strategy for you, and that is to wait on Him, to trust in Him, to rest in Him. And resting in His presence just means to let everything go, to go to our dad and say, Daddy, I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help. What do I do? And just leave your worries at the cross. It literally says, pray about everything. Everything? Everything, sorry. Sorry. But literally, pray about everything, right? Pray without ceasing and pray about everything. I just remember this story. I was going to go to my friend's house, like they're newly friends, right? We're newly getting acquainted, and I put on this dress. And I was going to go to my friend's house. My husband and I were going to go to their house. She's also married. I've worn this dress before, never had an issue, whatever. I felt the Holy Spirit tell me, go change. Go change. Walk into the car. Go change. Getting in the car. Go change. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go change. And I went inside, put jeans on and a t-shirt and went to the person's house. And then after that, I was like, what was that about? And the what I felt that was like, you don't know what people's temptations are. You don't know where they are with their walk. You present yourself in a way that never, like, I'm like, a dress, like the dress to me didn't have any reason to, you know what I mean? But it was like, God knows what's going on in other people's heart. God knows what's going on in other people's challenges. And if He tells you to do something, you just go ahead and do it. You just go ahead and change. And I that's what I did. Right? And when He says pray about everything, even with that, pray about the clothes that you're supposed to wear. From that day on, when I'm having certain things, like, I'm like, okay, God, should I be wearing this? And I know it's so tiny, right? It's so like your clothes. But after that experience, I was like, oh, He not playing. He means pray about everything. Pray about everything, because something as simple as a dress, you don't know how it can stumble somebody else, right? So just go to Him about everything that you need. He will console you. And I will wrap up with my verse, my anchor verse, I call it, which is Psalm 32:8. And I'm going to read the whole thing. It says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will console you with my loving eye on you. So that is it for me, guys. This was a little bit different, but I just wanted to encourage you to rest in God, trust in Him. He will teach you, He will counsel you, and He will guide you in the way that you should go. All you have to do is ask. All right. God bless, and you guys have an amazing day. And hopefully next week we can talk about the subject I wanted to talk about today, and that God doesn't start me in a different direction. But if He does, I will just gladly do as He asked me to do. All right, y'all. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.